Hello, everybody. It is 6:03 p.m. Central Time on Sunday, November 27th, 2016. Jumping on here to do an update for you, let you know what's going on. We've got some interesting things developing right now, several spots around the planet. And I'd like to draw your attention to the largest earthquake so far, and it struck at eastern Nepal after weeks of silence. Now we see eastern Nepal has been hit by a 5.4. We talked about this earlier this morning and last night that we were going to be watching at Nepal for new movement to strike in the mid-range 5 to 6. And again, we are at mid-range 5. Several of these actually going above up to 5.7, 5.8. So there it is. I mean, after weeks of silence, now you can see Nepal hit. And the reason Nepal was hit is because of the deep earthquakes that struck over to the east. We also talked about watching near Sumatra, and now we have new eruption reports coming out today of Sinabung putting off a new blast. We'll get into that tonight at 10 p.m. Eastern Time, onto the blast there. New Zealand was also struck last night at the catcher's mitt position, 5.1 earthquake. Also, the northern part of the South Island going up to Wellington, struck by multiple 4s going right along that plate boundary. We would expect that because of the deep earthquake up to the north. Additionally, over in Italy, we saw a huge swarm breakout. This is noteworthy in size. Also a 2.7, leftovers transferring up between Torino, Milan, and Florence, right in between all three cities, along the plate boundary, just south of the plate boundary, southeast of Torino. But the swarm in Italy, oh man, take a look at it. Topped out at 3.9 so far, and several dozen 2s and multiple mid-range 3s so far. And if this carries on this way, this is actually good. Okay, it's good to see a big stack of earthquakes like this as opposed to one single larger earthquake. If you were to add these all together right now, that would take us up to about, I would say, about a 4.8. 4.7, 4.8 if you add in all the 2s and 3s right now. So we're right below the 5.0 energy threshold expended so far today. Now we told you the swarm would be taking off by tonight, and here we are 48 hours after we issued the warning, and the swarm is going through the roof in Italy and spreading out to adjacent areas along the plate boundary. So the plate boundary exists down here to the south, down through Algeria, and up to the north, like I said, in between Florence, Milan, and Torino. Also the plate boundary back to the east. Now take a look at it. We had a moderately deep earthquake strike down below Romania. That's a 3.5. I'll highlight it for you on the screen here. That 3.5 actually striking right along the eastern edge of the European craton. You can see the elevation difference here between yellow and green. Okay, so the yellow, brown, and green. The green is the lower lying areas, and of course yellow and brown, higher mountain ranges. Well, look at the S shape, the backwards S shape we have here. And if you see which way it bends over to the west and goes up around to the west-northwest. Well, this deeper, but not extremely deep. I'd say it's only, well, let's get our measurement on this here. It's better to know. Okay, we're looking at 140 kilometers deep, so it's not terribly deep. It's happening down into the crust, but not below the crust. So that means the potential energy on this is not as great as we would expect if it was a very deep earthquake, like what we see over here in the West Pacific, for instance. So it's only moderately deep. I would call it moderately deep, 140 kilometers, which means the only potential on that could go up to, I would say, 4 to 4.5 at the most, developing off this 3.5. But where? Where would the 4 to 4.5 strike? Well, you have two possibilities. One possibility, South Poland. Look which way this bends up to the north, goes around in a crescent shape from the 3.5 up to the north. Follow that line, again, the line of the mountain ranges, and that takes you into South Poland right here. The other way that goes is due west. Where does that take us? That takes us into Macedonia, Bosnia, southeast Serbia, but again, right west of Romania. And what is it, guys? Again, we're looking for the potential of a 4 to 4.5 at the most, and that would be striking either to the west or to the north. Now, that's a 50-50. You'd have a better chance of flipping a quarter and figuring out which one is going to get hit. We do have a pretty much 100% chance that both spots are going to be hit. Now, is the larger movement going to develop out to the west or to the northwest? Well, look at where this is striking right here along the edge. Okay? Now, if it were to strike just a little bit to the north, it would certainly go to the north. The pressure would. And if it were to strike a little bit to the south, it would certainly go over towards Italy. But it's right at the bend. And I mean directly at the fulcrum point on that bend. The pressure is coming in from over here to the east. So the chances are, most likely, since the pressure is coming up from below, that it's going to prefer to the south. Why is that? Well, to the south, we've had several areas be hit recently. Macedonia, Greece, Italy, that whole area. Western Greece with the Ionia range moving several inches, Italy moving several inches. So it's preferring predominance to the south. That's just what we've seen over the past several weeks. So that plays into which way is it going to go. If we have a 50-50 and you don't know which way it's going to go, it's going to prefer to the spot where there's already been a swarm of activity. This is not a silent zone to the north. This is a spot that gets hit after Italy. So in other words, the pressure seeks a way down and then around out to the west-northwest normally. There will be smaller movement, though, most likely, up in Poland. Let's just keep that below 3.0, but above 2.5. So it'll be just a moderate earthquake that should strike. So that should, again, I hope that explains things for you. What happens when we see moderately deep earthquakes just to the east in Romania. So that all being said, we're still watching for the potential today going into tomorrow. Remember, we issued a 48 to 72 hour watch for central Italy to swarm increase and to be possibly topping out near, again, in that 5 range. I was thinking just a little bit above 5, actually. So right now we're topping out at 3.9. I haven't even checked the station list on that to verify whether or not that is, was it a larger earthquake than 3.9 or not? Maybe I should just go check really quick. Let's go check the scientific data on this, see if we do have any magnitudes listed. INGV is who they're going with pretty much on the stations. Our magnitudes are pretty much not listed. They don't have any of the magnitudes listed, okay. Let's go over to the seismologist page really quick. I know you guys aren't seeing this on the screen that I'm looking at, but I just want to check and see. Do they have it higher than 3.9? We really need to find out. Okay, central Italy. Yeah, they sure do. Here, check this out, guys. Okay, I'm going to turn the display capture on. Whoops. That's not good. Whoops. I think I just nuked my live stream there. All right, well, here. Take a look at the screen here. Okay, and we're going to go over and take a look at the seismologist page. Here's our earthquake. They went with 3.9 here, but look at our stations detected, topping out at 4.5. Now let's go see how many of those stations detected 4.5. Okay, 4.5, 4.4, 5.4, 5.4. There you go. 4.7, 4.4, 5.1, 4, 4.4, 4.5, 4, and a 4.2. Now they went with 3.9. Detected by 12 stations, guys. So what were we looking for? We were looking for a 5 to a 5.5, right? Well, there's our magnitude list right there, guys. Now let's go back and check the others. So you know it's not just that one. Let's go check the next one up. Let's go down the magnitude list here. Again, magnitudes right here. 5.2, 4.1, 4.2, 4.0, 4.1, 4.3, 4.1, 5.1, 3.8. These throw it down. Whenever they get a few smaller detections in there, that knocks it all off. It's like a false positive. It makes it lower, and they always incorporate it. 4.8, 4.4, 5.0, 4.2, 4.2, 4, 4, 3.7, 4.2, 4.2. How many stations is that? 31 stations. Okay. Now, I mean, look, you can either take my word for, they're going to 3.9. I tell you guys, they go with the low bar. A 5 struck. That's pretty much what it was. An upper 4 to 5 struck. They go with 3.9, and then they fan out the rest. That's another 2 magnitudes there. So, there it is. All right? So, Nepal was hit. Italy was hit. Let's get over into the West Pacific. Check this out. Again, guys, we're looking for possible large-scale movement to be striking right in the middle point between our 2 deep earthquakes. And it could go up to 2 magnitudes larger. That takes us up to 5.9 to 6.9. But we also have to take into account that These are new deep earthquakes, and this is carrying on from the 7s. So we actually have to add the potential for an additional large, 1 magnitude larger earthquake in there, which again takes us up to 7.9. This week, the potential is there. The potential in the West Pacific for a near 8.0 or at 8.0 earthquake is present now. That's no exaggeration, not trying to scare anybody, not trying to cause any alarm, trying to tell you guys that we're going to see another large earthquake here this week, and it could get larger than the last bunch that we had this past week. Why? Because there's new deep earthquakes that are kicking it up even more. And it should strike one of our silent zones, one of the zones that hasn't been hit yet with the large earthquake. So New Zealand was struck, Japan was struck, that's 2 off the list. I mean, the chances of having those plate boundaries get struck again when they're already in flux and moving and expending that energy, check it out. New Zealand's expending the energy as it comes in. So we had a new deep earthquake, 4.9 a day ago. That caused the 5s and the 4s down here to the south. It kicked things back up. It was only down in the 2, remember it was down in 2s and 3s? Now it's back up to the 4s and 5s. Why? Because of a deep 4.9 to the north. But the pressure is expending itself all along the plate boundary. As a matter of fact, if you were to trace these lines for the earthquakes, they would follow the plate boundary. Literally. Here, let me show you. Okay, take a look at the screen. You guys can see it here. All right, the red line. The red line is the plate boundary shown by the USGS, and our earthquakes are striking right along here on the north part of the island and going along the east part of the island up to the North Catcher's Mitt position to the east. Now, why is that happening? Because pressure is coming up from down below, and it's displacing that whole plate boundary. But it already ruptured. The rupture happened with the big earthquake. Now that's expending the energy as it's coming in, almost real time, within a few hours to a day. 4.9 causes 4s and 5s the next day, instead of a large 6 or 7. Why? Because instead of one single large earthquake and a swarm thereafter, it's literally expending the pressure. It's like real time coming up, and that pressure is relieving along that plate boundary that's currently in flux. But the spots where we haven't seen any movement, where it's been locked and loaded and no pressure has released, those are the potential spots for the large earthquake releases. There's only a few of them here. South of Japan and central West Pacific, east of Papua New Guinea in the Solomon Islands, Solomon Sea. And it's a very small little area here. We also have a volcano in there that could show a new blast. That's Bagana volcano. I couldn't remember the name of that last night. Let's go over to Volcano Discovery and just check real quick. See if there's anything going on. I haven't checked the volcanoes today, so this is my first time checking. I'm just going to check real time with you. Let's go to the volcano news. And this is the way you do it, guys. They have some weird ads on here, so just, if they pop up, just close them or whatever. Here we go. Okay, Worldwide Volcanic Activity Report. Wow, okay. So, Shivulak up in Kamchatka, Northwest Pacific. Let's show you where that is first. Shivulak up here next to these 4.7s. See the 4.7s? Now you see this landmass to the west, that's Kamchatka, and Shivulak is pretty much right in the middle of that. So just to the west of the seismic movement, we have a volcano erupting. And I've told you guys in the past, volcanoes equal about a 5.0. Just because we're talking about hundreds of earthquakes added together equals about a 5. So small earthquakes, small microquakes. And so we have 4.7, 4.8 just to the east. That makes sense. Now Dukono and Halmahera, that again, or Halmahera, that always sends off new blasts. That's not a shock. But Colima, guys, Colima started erupting again in earnest in western Mexico. Why is that? Because of the 7.0 that struck down to the south of Mexico. And look at the earthquake progression up the coast since then. Okay, see all these 4s? Now let's take it down just a couple days to the 7. Boom, there's the 7. Let's get all the other earthquakes off there. There's the 7. Now watch the progression as I take this back down. See that clustering out around there, then spreading up the coast? Getting lesser and lesser as it goes up towards the Gulf of California. How about that? Okay, well, why is it getting lesser and lesser as it goes up to the Gulf of California? Well, Popo erupted right here. Colima erupted up here in Mexico. That relieves the pressure. But then it picks back up off the west coast of the United States, and that gets us into the West Coast update. Now check this out. We have a new swarm developing down south of the border, right at the border. And I mean right at the border. See that? Okay. Well, that's due south of Salton Sea and due north of Cerro Prieto volcanoes. And I've shown those in the past, but I'll show it to you one more time for people who are new. Here's Southern California. Here's the U.S.-Mexico border at Mexicali. See this red triangle here? This is a Smithsonian-marked volcano. I've shown it many times in the past, but I'll zoom in one more time. Oh, Google Earth closed. I won't show it to you. You guys don't really need to see the volcano. It's just a little black tuft, but on the inside of it, there's some graffiti that have been carved into the center of the cone by locals, you know, Spanish graffiti. So anyways, to the north is Salton Sea. And if you look at the progression of earthquakes, we have the swarm, and then after the swarm, we have a progression up the San Andreas Fault, going up to the west-northwest. As I told you guys last night, when pressure fills down the coast of California and it hits Southern California going down into the Gulf of California, pretty much the pressure has nowhere to go from there. It starts transferring to the east after that, but right now it's backfilling up the coast. And this is going to lead to a new earthquake off the coast of the northwest portion of California within a few days' time. And let me just go ahead and show you the smaller earthquakes. We're going to look at all the microquakes that give away that this is getting ready to happen. Here's today's microquakes. Everything 0.0 and greater. And you're going to notice a few things. Now there's the stack down in Southern California. It's pretty obvious. But as I told you, the San Andreas Fault is now swarming going up east of Los Angeles, which that's going to bend west and go right through LA and then go up through Santa Barbara. Over the next day, you'll see this start to backfill up the coast. All of these single earthquakes here by tomorrow night should be double, triple, or even quadruple what they are now. There'll be stacks of these all up and down the eastern portion of California and Nevada. This stack here up in northwest California, which is actually not that big, will be at least double or triple in size by tomorrow night. Why is all that going to be occurring? Well, guys, we have pressure that's been building and developing here off the coast of northwest California over the past couple days. Since the volcanic eruption occurred last week off the coast of San Francisco that shook up all of San Francisco, and the USGS chose not to report that. After that then caused a progression of earthquakes to go all the way to the East Coast. Well, now it's happening again. There's a new round of earthquakes getting ready to develop off the coast of California. And we hope it strikes off the coast of California because at least we'll get it reported. Since they're not reporting earthquakes out of Oregon, and we would have to go to the Pacific Northwest Seismic Network to get that information, since USGS, some people came in and said, oh, what's the big deal? USGS just isn't reporting earthquakes there. That's not that big of a deal. What? Just not reporting earthquakes in the West Coast. Really? Not even zeros, ones, and twos, fours, or fives even? If we're missing fives, that's a big deal. And we have missed fives and fours off the West Coast, and that's not acceptable for a U.S. seismic monitoring agency in the 21st century. Not even to miss one. But even if there was some technical error, how do you miss 10, 20, 30 off the West Coast over the course of a couple weeks or months? How do you do that? That's intentional. That's not good. That's unscientific. I won't stand for it. You guys won't either, because we're paying good money to get those things reported to us, to these agencies. And if they're not going to bother with that, maybe we should start an agency that reports and deploy our own sensors. Maybe I need to start a global seismic monitoring network that deploys sensors all around the world. I don't know. I mean, is it necessary for me to do that in order to get the information? You'd think they would be able to provide that already. And I would understand overseas, people that would say, oh, overseas they can't report all the earthquakes. Yeah, I understand that. But what about right on the coast? What about fours and fives on the coast? We would expect to get those. We would expect to get that. We would expect to get ones, twos, threes, and fours in Oregon for certain. You would want to know that information. Landslides possible, just things that can happen. So if they're not providing that, that's a real trouble in science. So the potential's there. Be aware. You'll know when the West Coast gets struck, if it strikes off the coast, and if they don't report it. Let's say it strikes just to the north of California. I'm wrong by 100 miles, and it goes up to the north, and it falls in the area where they're not reporting earthquakes in Oregon. Well, you'll know right after that when the same size earthquake strikes in the Midwest. And what are we looking for magnitude-wise? We're looking for upper 4 now. I had to take it down a notch. Why? Because of all the other 4s spreading out right now around the plate. Now that's going to increase here in just a little bit once our large earthquake strikes over here. But in the next day to 2 days, it's going to stick in that upper 4 range. Again, look at it. It goes 4.4, 4.6, 4.7, should take us up to 4.8, 4.9. Look down to the south, 4.7, 4.5. Look down to the south over here, 4.8, 4.3, 4.7, 4.8, 4.8, 4.4. It's all 4s over the last 24 hours. This is just 24 hours worth of earthquakes. Now we can go look at the last 7-day feed again. Whoops. Did I select that? Last 7 days. There we go. And take a look at the last 7 days of earthquakes. It's a huge increase from where we were 2 weeks ago. We have to go back 2 weeks. When I told you guys, I got on and I said, look, we're going from, or not 2 weeks, a week and a half ago. We said, look, we're going from 4s to 5s, and then we're going to go from 5s to 6s, then we're going to go to 6s and 7s. And that's exactly what occurred. We were at 4s and 5s, it immediately went to 5s and 6s, and then it developed into 7s. And that's where we are now. The 7s have struck over the past couple days, and mid-range 6s as well. Some of these are big-time downgrades. But whatever, I mean, that's enough activity right there to prove to you that there's an increase going on. And the increase is due to the deep earthquakes. So, in the past couple days, there's been 2 deep earthquakes in Japan, 2 deep 5s. Let's get those on the map here. Oh, I'm sorry, in the past 4 days. Okay, in the past 4 days, take a look at it. These earthquakes raised high off the globe. 5s up north in Japan. Right? Then we have 4s down to the south clustered. And it seems to be carrying on. Over the past 2 days, there's been another round of deep earthquakes. So, ultimately, it means that the deep earthquake event that we've been talking about here is carrying on. And this is an area of intense interest for me. What is causing the deep earthquake increase? Something's causing a perturbance down below the plate in an area called the asthenosphere. And that, I've talked about it at length. Asthenosphere sounds complex. It's just a term to describe the semi-melted magma down below the plate. And something's going on down there where pressure is coming up, and it's coming upwards and outwards. And as these deep earthquakes happen, again, they're raised high off the globe, it presses up on the underside of the plate and it displaces the whole region. You can see surrounding each one of these deep earthquakes is the shallower, larger movement. It's like pressing up on the underside, and you're seeing cracking or bulging or doming occur across an entire region, not just a small area. Hey, check it out. Look, our middle point just got struck. Look at that. We told you about the fulcrum point in Taiwan. Look at it now, guys. Fulcrum point hit. Ah, well, well, well. You got to see it real time before your eyes. We started out the warning today and issued the warning for Taiwan. Now Taiwan's hit again by a similar sized earthquake. How about that? There you go. Okay, movement's starting there. I bet it'll swarm out. I bet we're going to see a swarm develop here. It's just a bet, not a forecast. I just would venture a good guess that this isn't going to be where we stop. This is going to carry on, just because of the movement that struck over the past couple days to the north. But there it is, middle point. It's the only earthquake to strike in the West Pacific today. Take a look at it. Last 24 hours. Only earthquake to strike today over 4.0. West Pacific. What is it? Taiwan. Why? It was the middle fulcrum point of the silent zone. That's why. And it's carrying on with 4s. That's good news right now. That's good news. If we can see this just fan out and see swarms of 4s, guys, not everything can be action-packed, excited, huge earthquake every time. And so you got to hope for swarms. You got to hope that there's going to be multiple releases that relieve the pressure. But we can count on it. Each time there's going to be a new release, it's going to strike in the middle point of the fulcrum point of the silent zone in the nearby area. That's why Taiwan was just struck. Okay, so much love, everybody. Much love. Hope you're doing good. Hope everything's working out for you this weekend and going into the work week of this next week over in Europe and Asia. I know you guys are already back in it, right? So, hang in there. Keep hope alive. Science will win. We'll win this battle, guys. We will win this battle. Now, let me see what's going on here with this inability to turn on Earthquake 3D. Okay, there we go. What the heck? What is this? There we go. That was weird. It was over off to the right hand side. I got some weird stuff going on here, guys. All right. So, yeah. Oh, real quick, again, if you're just now tuning in, Nepal was struck as expected with a 5.4, hasn't been hit in weeks. The reason it was struck in eastern Nepal, pressure transferring to the west off those new deep earthquakes. Additionally, Italy struck, swarming out hard, and it could go up another notch. Like I said, this is go time, so keep watching in Italy just in case. Just in case. We want to see the swarm carry on just like this. If I get on by tomorrow night and this swarm is double in size, and we say, good, all right, it was just 2s and upper 3s going into 4, but you guys saw it for yourself on the station list. That 3.9 that they went with was actually more like an upper 4 to lower 5. That's what it is. I mean, you can calculate the thing yourself. If you take off just the 2 smaller earthquakes that were detected on that 38 station list or whatever, then that gives you the larger earthquake. It's just proof to me that they are downgrading earthquakes, I think personally, to alleviate any fear or alarm. I think that plays into it. I do. I can't prove it. Don't have an email. Maybe there's a WikiLeaks. Maybe there's a WikiLeaks on earthquakes. Hey, watch out though. Watch out. If you go search earthquakes on WikiLeaks, you might not like what you find. You know, I don't go search. Whatever you do, actually, don't go search earthquakes on WikiLeaks, because your whole world will be shattered, and I don't want to be responsible for giving you nightmares or anything like that. But again, truth is what it is. Sometimes truth is stranger than fiction. Okay. Oh, all right, guys. So much love, everybody. I'll be back in a little while. We'll get the update out tonight at 10 p.m. Central Time. And again, we'll be recapping the areas struck around the planet. But you can already see it. Several of the areas we were talking about have been hit, and the potential for strikes in the other locations are there. The middle fulcrum points of the silent zones are the spots where we watch, and that's all I can tell you. Watch for the increase to occur even more, because we are in the midst of another unrest event. You see, you got to understand, and I'll just end it right here after this, that there is a fundamental misunderstanding of what the inside of the planet is made of by scientists. There is. And they are under the false assumption that the core of the Earth is a giant ball of metal that's not melted. A solid ball of metal. Now, there's some debate between them as to what the metal's made of, but the reason they think there's a solid core of the Earth is because seismic waves, and radio waves to some extent, Earth-penetrating tomography, but seismic waves bounce off the core of the Earth and come back as if it's a solid. Now, scientists didn't know up until the past few years that plasma energy, like a plasma torch, for instance, they use to cut through stone and metal, anything, okay? Human plasma torches, the ones we, used in factories. That these plasma torches, which are really just arc generators of electricity, producing plasma that cuts through things and superheats any element, that plasma energy is fed by electrical electrons, voltage, electricity. Electricity feeds a plasma torch. You shocked? Okay, well, down on the inside of the planet is a giant natural version of that. And it's rotating very fast. It's called oscillating. Electrical things oscillate. Plasma oscillates. Okay? Because it's powered by electricity. Well, the powered by comes from the sun, from space, and from some man-made sources at some point or another. But the potential energy goes to ground. From space, from the atmosphere, from human activity. When something goes to ground, when electricity goes to ground, it ultimately goes to the core of the Earth. And scientists mistakenly thought it was a solid ball of metal because it had reflections coming off of it. But it's just been found in the past few years that plasma reflects waves, shock waves and radio waves, like a mirror. And so if you're going to look using seismic waves at the core of the Earth, and you get a wave bouncing off of it, and it comes back to you, as a scientist up until recently, you would think that meant it's solid. Well, it's not solid. It's a rotating, oscillating ball of superheated plasma energy fed by power from the sun coming in through the north and south poles, which
like poles on a electrical line, I have a negative and a positive. And that power goes to ground. And so now they've come up with all kinds of creative explanations to justify how a solid ball of metal could exist inside the core of the Earth. Pressure, equations, all kinds of creative, well, I would call tap dancing, to prove their case. And it's wrong. And something's going on right now where the core of the Earth is actually expending more energy, heating up, rotating faster, or growing. One of those options. Like plasma physically growing outwards, that's one possibility. 2, it's rotating faster. That could also be happening while it's expanding. Or 3, it's growing in heat and intensity due to more voltage coming in. And we've noticed that the connection, it's not just me, this goes back to 2008 with astrometry, that there's a connection between when the sun is having an event of some kind, either a strong solar wind, Earth-directed CME, solar flare, filament rupture, or in some cases, even external sources from, let's say, a passing nearby asteroid, those kind of things. That there's energy potential that gets trapped by the Earth's magnetic atmosphere, as you want to call it, goes all the way out into space, that is actually coming from the core of the Earth. Now, they've come up with creative explanations about this, too. Scientists don't believe that the core of the Earth is producing a magnetic charge. They believe it's something else, that the magnetic charge is actually produced by things coming in from the outside. It's the foolishness of all foolishness. So, something's going on down below that's causing an expansion. That's what's causing these earthquakes, and for the fault zones to expand and press out. And the fault zones are these plate boundaries. That's where we're seeing, well, let's see, how much movement did we see down in New Zealand? 6 feet, 2 meters? 2 meters of movement in New Zealand, 70 centimeters of movement over in Italy. We don't know how much movement happened in Japan yet, but we can definitely be certain it was probably about 140 centimeters. Okay, so what does that mean? Well, it means that the plates are not only adjusting, but they're moving outwards because pressure's coming upwards and outwards, which means something's expanding down inside, beyond the mantle, down at the core. Something at the core is expanding, which is then putting pressure upwards out through the mantle, which is causing pressure to come up further out into the asthenosphere, which then translates out into the plates. It's a domino effect. That then pushes the plates, and we see movement happen all around the Pacific plate, like we're seeing now. It's amazing. They have to adjust what they know about the core of the Earth based upon the new findings that plasma reflects energy. And here's something else. They believe that the weight of everything on top of the crust's weight causes the melting of all the magma down below, down through the mantle and everything. That the weight of all the rock somehow equals heat. Yeah, you know, hey, I got an idea. If you want to melt that big metal I-beam, all you got to do is stack a bunch of concrete on top of it. Just put 10 trillion pounds of concrete on top of it. That'll melt it. Just think about it. So something's rotating down there in the core of the Earth, something that's powerful electromagnetically. Oh, that's the other thing. Plasma is very powerful electromagnetically. It emits its own electromagnetic waves outwards from the plasma that's being generated. So something down in the core of the Earth is extending a magnetic field far out into space. A ball of metal can't do that. Not even if it was magnetite. And it's not magnetite. They say it's nickel metal. Well, nickel metal balls don't emit any large magnetic fields out. Even if you were to expose it to a large electromagnetic field, it's still not going to emit its own. And it certainly isn't going to be hot enough to melt everything above it. And the pressure is not going to account for it to not melt. So anyways, I'm digressing into all the reasons why the core of the Earth theory right now is wrong. Once you understand that that's wrong, then you'll start to understand when these deep earthquakes are striking, why they're trying to, scientists are ignoring the problem, they're ignoring what's going on, because what this really does, this shoots a hole in pretty much a lot of modern day geology and seismology. And then that shoots a hole in a lot of other sciences that are built upon the foundation, this false foundation. So everything from astronomical dating of rocks and planets to biology is, well,
knocked down by the changing of the theories that are involved with geology, the age of the Earth, the formation of the Earth, the way it formed. You know, they all believe Pangea, and then Pangea justifies the dinosaurs and blah, 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 blah. And it's wrong. And so when you confront this, it really is taking down the whole house of cards of bogus science that's existed for the last 150 years, maybe, or 200 years. But let's just really put it at the last 150, that there's a house of cards that's been built based upon false data, and then other false data developed to propone that false original supposition. In other words, all of science comes crashing down, or a lot of it, everything from biology to astronomy, when you take down the geologic column, the dating system, the plate progression, the age of the Earth, the formation of the Earth, the center of the Earth, and you take it and ripping out whole chapters of the geology book as we go along to meet the facts. You know, I mean, look, we got to throw out the BS that's in the textbooks in order to understand what's really going on here. And what that does then is that calls most of modern day science into question, because they made a huge mistake in these other disciplines like astronomy, astrobiology, geology, exoplanet geology, that these different disciplines are, well, they're basing their data upon the age of the Earth. And the age of the Earth, of course, being completely incorrect from what they said. Now, I wouldn't know what it is. We would have to go around the planet and start digging, okay? But even that wouldn't prove it, okay? So we're talking about a complete fundamental change in seismic theory, geologic theory, which then changes pretty much everything above that was built upon that. And over the last 150 years, one of the foundational, ironically, the foundational principles are built upon shaky stone. Lots of faults in that foundation that they built. And it's coming shaken down. When we find the new facts, we got to, it's got to lead us where it leads us. If it means we have to throw out what's known, that's fine. That's science. It just means a lot's going to be thrown out, guys. So now you understand why I'm up against such a fight, because not only am I fighting against just geologic dogma and seismologic BS, but we're also fighting against, well, an establishment in science. Do you want to call it that? Okay. So, anyways, there's our update. I'll be back in a little while. Hey, by the way, looks like we just broke 169,000 subscribers. That's cool, man. All right, we might actually hit 175 in the next month. That would be cool. If I could hit 200,000 by Christmas, that would be incredible. But I don't know if that'll happen. It doesn't really mean anything. It looks good. It's a number that looks good. Oh, all right, guys. Much love. I'll be back in a little while. Have a plan. Be prepared, just in case. Don't be scared.